Welcome. I'm Betty MacDonald, writer, storyteller, and host of Words Carry Us. Before I introduce tonight's guest, I'll take this opportunity to read some of my work. This is a piece I often read, but it tickles me. It's called I Live in the Woods Like Snow White. I'm lucky to live in the woods like Snow White, surrounded by flora and fauna, and no dwarfs. I prefer my own company to Happy, Dopey, and Doc, and those guys. The birds and chipmunks scamper about. They don't help with chores like they do in the movie. I had a turned-off week. I got caught up binging a series on Netflix about two British families in Halifax, visited by one life-altering crisis after another. Now I think in a Yorkshire accent. This piece is called Big Rig. Big Rig. Glad I can say it. Big Rig. With a deep breath, she hoisted herself into the high step and into the cab of the big truck. Augie, the driver inquired to the roar of shifting into second. Yup. She settled into the seat, delaying eye contact as she concentrated on arranging her two small bags at her feet among the litter of empty beer cans and crushed cigarette packs on the floor, while inhaling the fetid atmosphere of stale smoke and essence of long-distance driver. Jerry had mailed the directions 3 days ago. Last night, he confirmed on the phone. It's easy, he urged. All you have to do is stand at the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel exactly at 4:45 tomorrow afternoon. My boy Kev's driving back after a delivery in Midtown. Kev's a good friend, poker buddy. Grew up with my cousin Brady in the Saugerties. He's driving a big rig, red and yellow, mostly yellow, with some blue. You can't miss it. He chuckled. You absolutely can't miss it. Hoping he could calm her fears with the absurd idea of her missing a yellow, red, and blue tractor trailer bearing down on her as it approached the Lincoln Tunnel. How will he see me, she groaned. Don't worry, he'll see you. He'll not only see you, he'll stop and pick you up. She whined, dragging out the words, how will he see me, to make sure Jerry knew, she knew, how ridiculous the plan was. She kept this up for a few more beats, and then, in a slow, low tone, because she was cool, she acquiesced. Where do I stand? There's a little cement island just after the main road joins the alternate road. You'll see a sign, green, I think, something about calling a number. He paused, his voice trailed off. If you're suicidal or need a friend or something like that, wishing he hadn't brought up the message on the sign. Be there exactly at 4:45. You'll be fine, don't worry. His voice was sweet, gooey with assurance. The next thing you know, you'll be in Greenville. Easy peasy. Nothing to worry about. Jerry's words echoed in her brain as she attached the seatbelt and sank into the seat. Your Kev? She asked at last. It was too late if he wasn't. She'd already buckled herself in and gotten comfy as the big rig roared into the tunnel. And I have two short ones. This one's sort of short. It's called Humidity. We're all aware of that. Embraced by moist air, humidity surrounds me. An occasional breeze like a lover's hand. Born and raised in the land of moisture, this weather takes me home. I must be descended from sea creatures or pond dwellers. In the Bearsville house by the rushing creek, the walls dripped. The dampness was hard on books and furniture, but I liked it. I could have been a frog's roommate. And this is my last one. It's short. Gratitude. Gratitude for sunlit green, this pond's watery mirror, the hummingbird's buzz, surprisingly loud from a bird so small. So now we can turn to my guest. Oops. If I can find the script. My guest tonight is Steve Van Nort. Steve Van Nort's light-filled paintings are haunting and evocative. They're concrete portraits, passages to places and scents known and recaptured. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Betty. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you tell us something about the work that's here on the gallery walls?
Yes, it's work that's kind of taken 20 years to kind of come together, and I started when I was young, and then I went off to New York and, studied with abstract expressionist painters and felt that energy and rigor, and so I followed that for off and on for another 20 years, and then, for my own personal, I would sketch and do these landscapes, and then so they've evolved into what we see there in the gallery.
How old were you when you knew you were a painter, or when you started painting? And did you draw before that, or?
I drew and a lot as a child, but I grew up in a family that was strong in science and engineering, and so I kind of followed that. And so when I went to university, I went to a big university because I didn't know what I really wanted to do.
Where did you go?
The University of Texas, and it was, they offered me some money to go there, so I said, sure.
On the basis of your art?
No, I was on the basis of a paper I wrote my senior year about the judicial system in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And it was about the jury backlog that was occurring there because they couldn't find enough jurors to have jury trials. And one of the upshots was that there was research had been done in the mid-'60s about using convicts at steady population as jurors. And the conclusion of the paper that I had found was that convicts were good at being very open-minded and about the crime and judging it on its merits, except for their own crime.
Right, they're very fair, but they've weighed a lot of good and bad.
Right, and so but it came to their crime, if they were listening to somebody who had been charged with their crime, they had to vote to acquit. So that was how I ended up. And so I submitted that to some law schools, and one of them was the University of Texas, and then that caught the attention of the dean, and then he, and so they gave me the scholarship to go there. And so when I was there, I studied history and chemistry because they led to two professional programs that, I thought would be interesting, and then my last year there, I discovered I started taking some architecture because I had an uncle who was an architect, and out of that, I enjoyed it. And when I graduated, the dean of the law school came to I had a little cabin or house in South Austin, and he knocks on the door on a Saturday morning, and it's Dean, right? And I go, oh, hi. And he goes, well, I didn't see your application for law school. Where is it?
Oh,
And I said, oh, I've changed my mind, and I'm going to graduate school in architecture. And he said, in so many words, chewed me out and called me a real, And I said, well, I didn't sign a contract for my Scott. And he said, I'll remember that.
did
So
did he think you had let him down or something?
yes. Oh, yeah, I'd let the program down, and him down, and yes. So.
And they gave you a scholarship and everything.
Yeah. And so I did a year of graduate school in architecture, and was my second semester there. I had a professor named Neil Anderson who said, hey, you're a really good drawer. Why don't you go over to the art department and brush up and get really,
Get
take
really
more
good
art
at it.
drawing classes. And I did. And then it so happened was that I was over there, and then that turns out I was a really good draftsman and drawer, and with three-dimensional design, two-dimensional design, and then life drawing. And so it so happened that, and I decided to take a few more courses, and then I was juggling whether to stay over in architecture and art, and then I had one of those moments where you meet somebody, and his name was, he was this new Kiwi, Max Klimt, who was pretty famous New Zealand painter who was up in New York. He was down in Austin, Texas with his wife, and she was giving a lecture at the education department where my wife at the time was getting her master's. So there's a lecture, there's two guys leaning against the back wall, one of them's Max, one of them's Steve, and he says, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm studying architecture. And he goes, Max was very large in life, and a lot of, why would you want to do that?
And why did you want to do that? Or did that just change your mind?
That changed my mind. And well, he had a kind of very logical argument, which really came to be proven over my lifetime, was that the architects, he said, they can't really realize their ideas right away like you can in a studio. You go in, you can make things happen, and you see
Right.
what you can think. And if you go, when you're in an office and it takes years to really learn the trade and the craft, and then you also always you're compromising with either the client or the contractor, and you're always trying to juggle and make things work. And a lot of your ideas are always pushed to the wayside because something else becomes more important. So I took that and thought about it, off and on. And while I'm taking the art classes and then architecture, and I go, yeah, he's right. So I found that, and so, and then there was another. Professor named Donald Goodall, who was at University of Texas. He's head of the art history department. And so he had been my advisor. And I went in and I said, this is what I'm thinking. And he said, oh, you got to go to New York.
Oh.
He said, get out of,
Get out of here.
Get out of Texas. Because he was originally from New Haven, and he was like, that's where everything's happening. It's New York. So, and I said, I was really curious about Giacometti, and from an architectural point of view and also an art point of view. And he said, well, I know this couple who were good friends with him. It was Herbert and Mercedes Matter, and she had just started the New York Studio School, and Herbert was up at Yale teaching graphic design. And so I went up and met them, and they said, sure. And so I started at the studio school, was there for 3 years, and then I applied to Yale and Columbia, and I didn't get into Yale, so I went to Columbia. I got into Columbia.
And you studied art at Columbia.
Yeah, I studied, yeah, studio school is a rigorous day, a 5-day-a-week, 8 hours a day program, hours in the morning. All you do is draw and paint, or draw and do sculpture. And there wasn't no faculty per se. There were visiting artists that came in, and they talked more about not what you were doing, but about art, how to make art, what they were thinking about. And that was really great for me because I had a degree and I didn't really want to, I wanted to kind of find my own voice. So that was...
Find your own voice.
Yeah, my own way of seeing, and, there was always suggestions. There were some, there were artists, Nick Caroni, Mercedes have the drawing, they'd come through once or twice a week to see what, people were doing. And then there were a few painters that would come visiting, like from Yale, or artists that lived in Manhattan, and students could call them up and ask, would you come? And then there was some kind of a standing faculty that would come, painters who would come in once a week maybe, or once a month. And so they were all invested in the school because Mercedes Matters was this very charismatic woman, and she had this loyal, devoted following of other artists. So I got to meet some really interesting, talented older artists, that were, like Philip Guston or Esteban Vicente, painters, and they were.
And
really
were they all advising you, looking at your work?
Every semester be somebody different, but I spent 2 semesters with Andrew Forge and then 2 semesters with John Walker, and they were up at Yale. And then Philip Guston had just gone up to Boston University to go teach there, but he had been at the studio school for about 6 years, and so it was.
It sounds like an exciting education.
It was exciting because I loved it. And then I went up when I was at Columbia, which I didn't finish my degree because I ran out of money at this time. So I'd been in school way too long. But I studied with John Helliker there, and that was, again, it was, they acted as mentors. I should mention George McNeil was a really big mentor for me, and I kept in touch with him for years.
And did you always do landscape, or did you do
No, with the influence of George McNeil and Guston, no, I did more. When I left, I wasn't sure what I wanted to say or how to do it, so I really, when I was there, I had doing big charcoal drawings, and they were, well received. And then when I left, and one of them ended up in a show down in Soho, kind of a gallery called Max Hutchinson, and there's, a gallery approached me, would you like to have a show? And I thought, well, no, I'm too young. I just, 'cause
You weren't ready?
I wasn't ready. I felt kind of guilty. I'd only been, I really didn't seriously make art until I was like 21, 20. So, no, it's, 10 years minimum. So I went back, and then I kind of investigated art history and how I find my voice in it, find my way of looking at things. So things became abstract for a while, and then I drew a lot and painted from the masters. I'd go to the Metropolitan, or I'd go out to Brooklyn Museum, and I spent hours there. And I was lucky enough one year, I went to Europe. I spent a month in Florence, a month in Madrid, and then a month in Paris. That's all, and I just go every day and draw and paint.
And you were studying all that time?
Yeah, but now after I left Columbia, in the studio school, then I just went on my own. I was lucky enough I'd gotten a friend who had a loft down on 23rd Street, and he said, my renter left, would you like to take it? So it was 240 West 23rd Street, right next to a synagogue, and next to that was the Hotel Chelsea. So
oh boy.
It was fun.
The beginning of a colorful life.
Very colorful. Yeah, and then I had a great part-time job. Well, no, I'd work nights so I could paint during the day, and that was at a law firm, and I did legal research. And for the partners, and it was pretty interesting. But because I was tasked with finding there was the mergers and acquisition firm, and they were very successful. But when they go into court, or when if it's a hostile takeover, one company, but I had to kind of look for not flaws, but poor judgment by the executives, and I dug up dirt.
So that takes real skill.
No, I was just curious, and I just kind of.
You just have to be smart.
No, I wasn't smart. I was just curious, and I just think, because I grew up in a small town in Indiana where, it kind of small towns like big messy families, right? So you hear stories about something your neighbor, and then you see it in the paper, and you go, oh, well, why did Mr. Fulton go to jail or spend the night in the jail, and then he was drunk driving, but that was like the 5th time he got caught. Well, things like that are silly, other.
So you're good at figuring that out.
Well, you go through. I was a paper boy for 8 years, so so
in Indiana.
Yeah, Gary Post Tribune and Chicago Tribune. Those were my papers, and back in you go get 25 cents for the week's work or whatever. I had a little card. You'd have to keep track of Mrs. Fulgham or Mr. Smith and whatever. Anyway, I know Lincoln Steffens, the muckraker, the original one. Thought that would be a really great career, so I thought I'd start at the bottom and become a newspaper delivery kid. And then I read, after I read his autobiography, I thought, yeah. And so anyway, what that had to do with the law firm was that these newspapers, you're always in the back pages, and you then see the public announcements. And so I was really curious because Gary wasn't all that big, so you'd see stuff in there like, my people that you knew that worked in United States Steel, that was, or Bethlehem Steel or Standard, and you go, why didn't, you just see things that make you curious, or why, or.
I didn't quite understand what you were saying about the steel.
Oh, that's a big company in Northwest Indiana.
I get that.
United States Steel, they were the largest employer, so the employees would sometimes get into trouble, and you'd see it in the paper you just delivered. And so that kind of knowing where to look in a paper, or that the bank, they always list the bank loans.
Yeah.
Right, and so why did so and so get that big loan for their house? And then you hear parents talking about, yeah, you're adding that big wing. Where did how did they do that? so that kind of curiosity, hearing that conversation or seeing it in the paper. Then when I'm in New York, and they say, well, you got to go over to New Jersey, over to Teaneck, and look in the Bergen Journal. I said, sure, I know where. I can look at microfiche for days or hours. It's. But the fun thing was that there were other artists that were at school with me, and they needed part-time jobs, and so because I had, they liked me there, and they were always, do you know any other part-time people that need part-time work? So I get other artists' jobs.
Oh, great!
Yeah, it was. It was
yeah.
really, and so when I was there 4 or 5 years, let's say 5 years, and then. By the time I left, there had the 4 artists still working there, and so some of them become paralegals.
Some of them became paralegals.
Yeah, some became paralegals. Some they were one of them. Peter Larikas. He was a type, or he would take what do they call them? The depositions and then they'd have to transpose them on the paper. So. Peter, because he was a really good visual artist and had done some paste ups for magazines, he could take a whole paragraph, and within 30 seconds take this deposition and put it into a nice slick column. And he was really fast, and the law firm really liked it. He was the fastest one in the secretary pool
Of your friends.
yeah, and that morphed into, and then they started introducing computers, right, and the really big monitors, and you'd be on the typing keys instead of, and Peter could do it all with hit the tab buttons, click it, and then boom, he could do 10 pages, and that caught. But it was through a program, I think, I'm not sure if it was called Lexis, but Lexi, and the story was that I saw him a couple years after that, and what had happened is that he created a program, and he sold it.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
How to do it, right?
How to do it to the Commerce Clearinghouse, which was the big publisher of all the laws stuff, like the laws and their books, and they bought it from him for a very large sum of money.
And he was an artist.
He was an artist, so he got to buy a loft down on Moore Street in Tribeca, and which was really great. I mean, that was a good story.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. And then he had, and so it took all that financial burden off of him. So he had,
And what about your financial burden?
I was always hand to mouth.
But it worked. It sounded like you had an interesting job.
Yeah, but then I did have to leave it. It was just now the young associates were entering at my age. Before it was always I was working for older, the partners, and then, and then finally one day I was looking in the library face to face and having an argument with a first year associate, and he's trying to tell me what to do, and I said, you can't do that, And so then I had friends who had teaching, there was some, I taught a semester and around New York at a small school, and I didn't like that. That wasn't, so I had a lot of friends that were doing construction. And so I hired on as a gopher, started as a gopher, and then did that for a year, and then had enough carpentry skills. I got the pass off as a carpenter, which was a bit of a lie, but I kind of did it. And then, but that got faster and better. And then what I found I was reasonably good at was talking to the clients and the architect.
Because you understood.
So yeah, and so I ended up kind of saying, well, I can do this. And so I hired all my carpenters were artists, and the plumbers were artists, and the electricians were artists. So we had an art crew, and then I became the kind of the
spokesperson.
GC. Yeah, it was a bit of a GC, and so then we were doing a lot of lofts, and that was really fun because then you got to meet more artists, and not just people that you were like-minded, but across the spectrum, and that was really fun. Whether it was the Chuck Close or just Nestor Almendros. It was the cinematographer, and a couple, Susan Rothenberg.
So originally you were from Indiana, and then you went to Texas to school.
Yep, and then I ended up in New York, and I've been here ever since.
How did you get interested in Massachusetts?
Well, I had friends that would go up in the summer in the Berkshires.
Right.
And land was cheap, that's what we go look for. So,
cheap land.
Yeah,
Right.
so you can either build a house or buy a little house on a lot of land. So that's and then from there I ended up over in Rhinebeck for 5 years, and then I saw the writing on the wall, so I moved up to the Adirondacks.
The handwriting on the wall.
Yeah, I was when you see the the Porsches and the
Right, it got expensive, right?
Yeah, and I said, you know what?
So how did COVID affect you?
We were upstate, so it didn't affect me at all. We were in a rural area. We didn't travel for the first year and a half, there were no COVID cases in our little town.
Wow.
We were really lucky because some people did leave or had been traveling. A couple of people came back with COVID, but they quarantined themselves. So it was a pretty, yeah, it was real unusual. And then about 2.5 years later, it kind of found its way into the small town, but it was never severe, heavy, the really severe
By that
case.
time, it wasn't such a,
Right.
it wasn't so strong.
It wasn't so strong, and then also we had vaccinations, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that helped buffer too.
Right, right. And now you're living in Westport and painting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And do you show in a gallery up there?
I had a show at Wickham's Gallery this spring in March. I had a show there, and then there was last summer. There's one at the Keene Valley Art Center, so, and it's kind of interesting because I lived in New York for 20 years, and I moved to LA for 20 years, and that was
A lot of contrast.
yeah, it was a real contrast. And so I moved out there because I'd met a woman who lived in LA, and she said, and it just worked out, and I was there for 20 years, and not quite 20, but anyway, it was I still kept my place, and when I moved to LA, I had kept the house, and I'd spend my summers up in upstate New York. And so when I come back here, I had like a summer studio, which is the barn, which is in the clip that David's about to show. You can see the old barn.
Oh, yes, I want to see the clip.
Yeah. Hello, this is Steve Van Nort, and we're looking at my art, which is a culmination of about 25 years worth of landscape painting. Having a show opening on July 3rd at Greenkill Gallery in Kingston. These landscapes are inspired by my life in the Adirondacks and all about the wonderful things you can see throughout the day. The show, just a great way to share my ideas about art and a way of living with the rest of the world.
That's an interesting looking building.
Yeah, thank you.
And you've been there for quite a long time.
That little piece of property I bought in 1988. It's kind of, my homestead.
Right, yes. And your house is on that.
No, I built, there was a little cottage there, called the Workman's Cottage.
Yeah.
And I had that for many years. And then I ended up being able to expand the property, and I built another house, a more contemporary house on the property, and then I lived there.
You designed the house.
I designed and built it, yeah.
So you are an architect.
No. I did design a house with a really good friend, Richard McElhaney, which is over in near Pine Plains, and it's a really fun house that was picked up by Princeton University Press and published through them.
Wow.
Yeah, Stan Allen was asked to remodel it, and he didn't want to change the house we had designed, and he did a little add-on to it, but that was kind of fun. But that was 30 years later. They, became interesting.
But you still have your hand in it, right?
Oh yeah, you can tell I built it, for better or worse.
Right. Yes. And you enjoy doing that?
Yeah, I do a lot. Sure, it's about. I always, even when I was in New York City, we're doing Lost. I love it when you frame everything up, and then you can see the space, and you can see through the space, right? So I always enjoyed that. And so the house that I built in Pine Plains, and then I built some other ones around, were fun, and they're fun to do, and just the process is fun, and I did most of the work myself. The ones, because I've designed 4 houses, and I built them myself because I wanted to be my own client and not have people dictating how I was going to do it.
Yes, we don't want anyone to tell us what to do.
No, we don't.
Me neither.
Exactly. So I did, that was a lot of, so the one in Pine Plains and there's one up in Westport, and now I'm building another little one. And it's more, but one of my goals in doing these small houses, they're not big, they're anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 square feet, but was to start up a little starter house for young couples.
Yes.
And they're practical, and my real goal was to have a very modest, what they call square foot price. And because, you go look in the architectural record, the architectural digest, they're big fancy jobs, with, they're, 10 times that.
Sure.
And
yeah.
so, it can be done. You can make, and I think, young people shouldn't, have to buy, things off the rack like, prefabbed houses, or, make it quirky and fun and livable. And, and
So is that when you keep saying it's fun and it's quirky, is that in the design that's different or
yes,
unusual?
yeah. An example was the house, the house on just the one up in Westport. The ceilings in the kitchen are 16 feet high.
Oh,
So you've got this big kind of cubic volume with, and that's, you walk in and it's this big. It's only 14 feet by 14 feet by 16 feet, but that, and then it's a fun
so
kitchen.
if you lay it on its side, it would be bigger. Right?
Yeah, somebody said, yeah, exactly.
So you alternate between painting and doing
Yeah,
designing?
so that's what I've been doing for how long now? 45 years. So,
oh,
yes.
my goodness.
So but I get inspired by building these things. Oh, look at the light, or look at this, going on, the
Right.
clouds, or when you look out, what do you see? Because I use different size shaped windows, not the standard, whatever, it's 30 by 36 or whatever. And I, make little quirky windows and buy the glass to install in it. So you have these little views or big views, and
Right.
there's that going on, and whether it's inside light or outside, and then I also, we're building a house, you're outside a lot anyway,
Yes,
and so I'm really slow because I got to stop and look at the clouds.
of course.
Right, that's part of my daily program, and then I started a habit when I lived in New York, and I lived on the Upper West Side, in the early 80s, that I would get up early and take the number 1 train down to Canal Street, get off, and it would be like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd walk down Canal, go to Dave's Luncheonette, have my usual, and everybody knew, and then I'd walk. I had a studio across the street on Canal Street, right across from Utrecht Arts. Pearl Art, they sold you. Pearl Arts was right across the street. And I would work there from 5:30 until 8:39, and then I'd go do my carpentry or whatever, or go look to a job site.
Wait, you'd start working at what time?
5:30 in the morning.
And you'd work till 9?
30.
Nine.
Yeah, 9 o'clock, and then I'd go.
And then you'd go do work?
Because one of the usual things about doing construction in Manhattan, there's very strict time ordinance. So if you're doing a kitchen remodel in a co-op, you can't even get on the job until 9 o'clock.
Right.
And the elevator operators won't even let you up.
It's like the noise?
The noise, the dust, whatever it is, or you might, and then you have to knock off at 3:30 or 4. And so then...
You have to be intense.
Yeah. You do, and so, there was a couple times we had deadlines, which were pretty onerous. And
Yeah, I can imagine.
And
With
we-
that much time constraint, it must be hard.
It was hard figuring out how long it would take, and then we were worried. This was a job for a famous art patron, and it was on Park Avenue and 72nd Street in a penthouse. And her art collection had gone to the Cleveland Museum and the Chicago Art Institute for the summer. And we had 4 months to do 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a kitchen, and a new foyer floor.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was pretty intense. And
Did you have a big crew?
For that job, yes, we had a really big crew, and but we were falling over each other, but we were so worried about getting stuff done. The electricians were complaining, the plumbers were complaining. You're in my way. The tile guy, I can't do the walls. Get out of here. Things like that. But we got it done, and it was very successful. That it was.
So now your life is divided between painting in your studio and designing houses.
And now it's more 30-30. I get to go hiking and bicycling and swimming and canoeing, and I do that.
Not too shabby. It sounds really good. So it's really interesting. You're leading a very interesting life. And is there anything we've left out?
No. I'm glad that you said interesting, because that's kind of what I wanted when I was between 18 and 22. I would just rack my brain. What do I want to do? And be, find that something that would keep me interested for my entire career.
Yes, yeah.
And I got lucky. I did. I meet somebody interesting, and I go, oh, what? And then it would follow it, and and so
it really works when you don't know what you're going to do. Right?
Exactly.
I believe in that.
Yeah. And I have good friends that are really good at thinking inside the box. You give them a problem, they really can do it. And I have to think outside the box. And
right. Yeah.
Except I look at my landscapes right now at the show. That's not, that is a box, but it's a long tradition and history. And I decided I wanted to bring something different to it, because I can remember, there was a really good painter named Leland Bell who taught at the studio school and all around, and he was in New York for a long time. And he said, Steve, look at Matisse's flowers. He did something new. You can do it. Or look at Van Gogh and his shoes. I mean, who's ever painted shoes like that?
Right.
So that's the chemistry, or the idea behind the paintings is always, let's find something new there for everybody and for myself.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
So that's...
Well, this is a beautiful show.
Thank you.
And it'll be here for another week and a half, I believe.
Mm-hmm. To the 29th of August.
To the 29th of August. It's a pleasure to have
it was fun.
to
Thanks
speak
for having
with
me.
you. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too.
My guest tonight is Steve Van Nort. Oh, wait, I'm reading the wrong script. That's the welcome part. Here we go. The work of Steve Van Nort, along with P.H. Segura, is on exhibit at the gallery in Greenkill until Saturday, August 30th. The art of Nancy Catandela and Carol Levine will be on exhibition from Saturday, September 6th until Saturday, October 25th at Greenkill. An opening party for that show will take place Saturday, September 6th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the gallery. Greenkill Gallery exhibition hours are Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 6 p.m. I'm always afraid they'll stop right here, but they kept going. Okay. To schedule a special appointment, please call 347-689-2323 or write to us at 229 Greenkill at greenkill.org. For more information about exhibitions as well as live stream and live audience events, email us at 229greenkill at greenkill.org. As always, we're grateful to David Schau, who organizes, directs, and makes things happen here at Greenkill. Many thanks go out to Shirley Hoffman-Warren, who composed and performed our musical theme, assisted by recording engineer Jason Warren. Many thanks to you for tuning in and watching us on YouTube. Again, our guest tonight on Words Carry Us live stream from Greenkill has been artist Steve Van Nort. I hope you've enjoyed Words Carry Us for August 15th, 2025. Greenkill out.